Number 1, aisle 95.
The Women's Coalition of St. Croix presents Silence Speaks, Secrets Revealed, a radio drama about child sexual abuse. It contains subject matter that may be triggering for survivors. Discretion is advised.
Now, look at this. This is called grooming. See how he waits until others leave the scene? See how he draws little Beto in? See how the perpetrator normalizes an inappropriate situation? This perpetrator is 17. It's 3:45 in the afternoon, an optimal time for an offense.
I busting her. Yeah, I going to. My woman bugging me. She wanna go movie. Why don't like them Babylon thing? If it ain't about real black people, I wanna see all of Hollywood. This is she on the phone. Yeah, I gonna be there. Bye.
Hey, Beto, you want to see something?
What?
Come here, I gonna show you. But you gotta come over here. It's behind the house.
Records, tell me you have a video of a chicken fighting. You gonna let me see it?
I got something better.
Let me see, Juanito.
Juanito knows Beto trusts him. He knows the little boy thinks of him as a brother.
Look at this woman on my phone. She pretty, yeah? Watch them big titty.
I know.
Now be a big mother, what? You can't be scared of a woman.
If my mother find out.
But don't tell her then. She will understand. This man business. Hey, look at next one here. She's sweet, my son, right?
Yeah. I think my mommy come.
Remember what I said. I won't let you see my chicken no more.
The child becomes a conspirator in the loss of his own innocence.
Hi, mommy.
Didn't I tell you to stay with your grandmother?
That was last week. You didn't tell me this week.
Ay, Dios mío, don't be stupid. Get in the house now. You have to show me your homework.
Hi, Miss Rodriguez.
You okay? How's your mother?
She good. I gonna tell her you asked for she. I gonna help you with a yard tomorrow.
Okay. You see it, eh? It need help. God bless you. Tenga buen día.
Hey, Beto, I gonna bring you some bubble gum tomorrow.
What will happen to them? Such a happy little family.
Thank you for listening to Silence Speaks, Secrets Revealed. If you or someone you know has been sexually abused, please dial 911 in an emergency or call the Women's Coalition at 340-773-9.
Oh, welcome. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you doing today?
I'm fine. How are you doing, Slick?
I'm doing wonderful. Sheelene Gumbs in the building, the Women's Coalition. Wonderful day.
Yes. And welcome everybody to the after show. Let's talk about it. A live call-in talk show to continue discussing the weekly episodes of Silence Speaks, Secrets Revealed, a radio drama about child sexual abuse, presented by the Women's Coalition of St. Croix. The stories are fiction based on fact. I'm your host, Sheelene Gumbs, and today with us we have Dr. Jewel Owen. She's a local psychologist. Hello, Dr. Owen.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself to begin with before we get into all the stuff that we're going to talk about today.
Well, I'm a child and adult psychologist. I was born and raised right here in St. Croix, and I've been practicing maybe over 18 years now.
All right.
I've lost count. But yes, so I'm glad to be back home practicing and working with families and children. So.
Oh, that's fantastic. See, another one, homegrown, came back to practice, bring your specialty back home. So we are really, really glad. We're glad to have you on the show. And so remember, it's a call-in show, and Slick is going to be proud of me. 773-FM-FM, 773-3636 is the number to call in. Because this is a call-in show, so we do want to hear from you. And today we're going to talk about something really interesting and really important, something that we don't think about a lot. We're going to talk about grooming. And not only grooming of the child, but grooming of the families. And how that happens. So, Dr. Owen, tell us, what are some of the ways that grooming is done?
Well, grooming is based on trust, establishing a trust relationship with the child and the family, or the caretakers. And usually what happens is a friend, a family member, someone that might seem unsuspecting in terms of being a sexual offender. And that's somebody that, you know, it's not going to be overt. It's going to be a subtle grooming, hence their word grooming.
Okay.
It's a subtle process that's taking place, and it's totally based on trust. And what it is that it's kind of desensitizing the child to have a sort of sexual experience, but it's a gradual process. So, you know, it seems benign at first, and then it gradually becomes more of a sexual abuse over time, which could take years sometimes.
Okay. So they really don't know that it's happening until it's actually happening.
Right. It looked innocent from the outside. A lot of times, you know, for instance, in the vignette, their guy, Beto, was going to be coming over to cut the lawn. You know, he seemed like a nice little family friend, but really and truly, he's finding ways to have a relationship with this little boy.
Right.
So.
Right. And so that's one of the things that we wanted to bring out in it. It's that the family friend who actually was, like you said, wanted to cut the lawn. So he's friends with the mother too. So the mother wouldn't even suspect that anything would happen with him. The child's still thinking about fighting chickens until all of a sudden these weird pictures show up.
Right.
And he's like, okay, I don't know what to do with that. And he's still trying to get away.
And then there's also in that particular vignette this sense of he's presenting himself as a father figure or as a male role model. You know, this is what men do, so it seems as if this is normalized behavior.
Right.
You know, exposing him to these pictures. So.
Okay, because he does say you gotta be a man about it, pretty much. Okay, so how are parents groomed into seemingly becoming participants in the sexual assault of their children?
Well, again, there's a building of trust. You know, in this particular vignette. Not only is their Beto a family friend, but his mother is a friend as well. So we know each other.
Right, Juanito. Right, yeah.
So it's the sense of, you know, he would never do that.
Right.
Because, you know, it's subtle. It's a subtle, grooming in and of itself is just a subtle process. So it's not going to be overt. It's not going to be something that, it's going to seem innocent to the outside eye.
Right. Okay, and so Juanito, being the 17-year-old, comes in, and that's common practice in a lot of children that get sexually assaulted, especially when they have people coming into the homes, right? In terms of how does the grooming what effects does it have on individuals? So it can lend you to feel safe around people. That's pretty much what the subtle grooming is about?
Safe. It seems like normal behavior, because this is what men do. Men look at these things. So there's no sense of that he's being exposed prematurely to the sexual content.
Okay.
You know, this child doesn't know that he should not be exposed, because here's an older child telling him this is okay behavior. So it's normalized.
Okay. And in normalizing it, it's the way that they're able to get a lot of other things done.
Right.
And so
and you build upon those things. You know,
okay.
From there, then it might be a more another type of sexual. It might even seem innocent still. It might seem like maybe another picture that shows a little bit more.
Okay.
Or maybe it might be a video. You know, it just builds upon grooming builds upon itself.
Okay. All right. So
it's like a shaping of behaviors, if you want to think of it that way.
A shaping of behaviors. That's an interesting way to put it. So you're kind of creating what's supposed to happen next.
Right.
By setting a stage.
Right.
So it's like a play where you start building the characters, and so this becomes normal, and then this becomes normal. And you use the word desensitize, right? And desensitizing happens with a lot of things, right? Not just with pictures.
Right.
What about using movies? You know, because I know sometimes, you know, especially nowadays when we have in the movie theater, you know, people get to see anything and everything, and a lot of that exposes children to a lot more stuff than they should.
Absolutely.
And so even taking children to movies like that can be used, or can it? You know, like if I take a 6-year-old to see a rated R movie, and there's a lot of sex scenes in there, and I can make reference to it.
Right.
That's the type of subtle behaviors we're looking at.
Right. Although those aren't necessarily maybe used to groom per se, their concept of grooming is there's an intent to shape the behavior. But yeah, in terms of desensitizing, we do desensitize children nowadays. They don't even know what curse words are, because curse words are used as normal words. So they're desensitized from even the shock value of, you know, some of the curse words.
Okay.
You know, just the increased exposure over time to anything is going to desensitize you to it.
Okay. All right.
So don't cuss in front of the children first. Stop cussing your children.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, and desensitization, you know, is a big thing for us, especially at the coalition, because we're seeing it happen in everything. It happens in domestic violence because all the television dramas include a domestic violence of some sort. Somebody's beating up their girlfriend, somebody's raping somebody, somebody's killing somebody. So nowadays we had 3 murders in 5 days, and everybody's like, most people don't remember the person who got killed Sunday because somebody got killed on Tuesday. You know what I mean? So,
and that's a great example of desensitization. You know, the shock to their community is null and void at this point because it happens so frequently.
right.
You know.
And so when we see pictures, and even to the, you know, I know that especially with social media, you see a lot of pictures. We used to see a lot of pictures. It's kind of slowed down now, thank God. You know, they would show pictures of people having sex, like in the schools, or people getting assaulted in the schools, and it was just going around. So after a while, your people's reputations are destroyed because of it. But then it still made you less, the shock, like you said, the shock factor to it is gone.
Right.
And with a lot of grooming, that tends to happen because then there's no shock factor to it. At first it feels uncomfortable, and then after a while it's customary.
Right.
And then that's when it progresses to the next stage.
Right.
Okay, so next question. How long does what long-term effect does grooming have on an individual? And I know that's a loaded question.
Yes, because you have to think about all aspects of it, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual. You know, it affects your whole sense of being. A lot of times when children are exposed prematurely to sexual content, it kind of changes their innocence, their sense of innocence. They learn things a little too soon, and so they want to maybe engage in things a little too soon as well. And then you have to think about their children who are sexually abused and or exposed to things that they really can't form a language around, you know. So you're showing them these images, but then they don't know what's happening. There's no language to explain what's taking place, you know. And so some of that can be perceived as trauma for some children. They don't know what's going on.
What kind of effects does that actually have directly on a child not having a conversation about something like images that they're seeing?
A lot of times some of them replicate some of these behaviors, and you see child-on-child sexual abuse sometimes because they don't know that this is inappropriate behavior, but they're, you know, for instance, in psychology we do play therapy, and part of play therapy is children replicating images or family scenes that they've seen before, and that's how children kind of make sense of what's going on around them through play. You know, and sometimes which child sexual abuse, it can manifest itself that way, where they're actually acting out some of what they see. So.
And the acting out could be on toys, it can be on other people.
Right, because again, the language is key. You know, if there's no language to put to what is going on, they're trying to make sense of it somehow, and children do it through play.
Okay.
So.
All right. So if you see your children and they're doing some weird play, pay attention to it. Because you never know, they may be trying to tell you something, is what Dr. Owen is saying. They may be trying to tell you something, but they don't have the words to be able to express or explain what they're doing. And so if you see them starting to have different behavior, pay attention.
And if they're of an age where they can understand, I mean, or break it down to their age level, where you can explain certain things, you know, good touch, bad touch, you know, can I start exposing them early, because they're going to be exposed early with technology. They're going to see things. They're going to be, you know, it's just so much a parent can control.
Right.
You know, so the more you can educate them and let them know, you know, this is not appropriate. This is, you know, your safe space. You know, boundaries. You know, use their language and start, you know, having the conversations with them so they can, when something is happening, they'll have some sort of language to put to it.
Okay. All right, so we have to learn to talk to our children and not be afraid of the conversations that we have, but make them age appropriate, which is the hard part, because nowadays we don't know what's age appropriate.
But it feels inappropriate talking to my son about sex. Right? I think parents are the people who have the most. I think it's mostly uncomfortable for the parents than it is for the children at this point.
Right, because we didn't have the conversations when we were younger. Nobody talked about that. We don't talk about that. And because we don't
It doesn't happen. It doesn't.
No, we just end up, there's just children all over, but it doesn't happen.
There was a stork.
The stork that dropped off the baby.
Drop off the baby.
Yeah, at Kmart, and you went and picked it up and it came through FedEx. Yeah, no. So, but we don't have that conversation.
You know, I do want to point out too that, you know, some children do withdraw, and you might see a change in their behaviors as well. You know, it might look like depression. They might act out with anger, you know. So it's not always play for some children. It might manifest in changes in behavior. Just pay attention. If your child is acting a little bit differently, you know, even manicky, overly anxious or excitable, you know, any little change can mean something is going on.
Okay. All right, so pay attention. That means you have to know your kids so you can see when the changes are happening. All right, and so this question is going to be a little bit off the scope, but I think it's very, very important in terms of learning how this happens and what effects that it has. Because we're doing this pretty much in hindsight. We're not doing it as prevention anymore because it's happened so much. We're trying to stop it, so we're trying to do an intervention here. So how does child sexual assault affect adults, and in what ways does it manifest with adults?
Okay. So a lot of times, especially if it's not addressed in childhood, these things stay with you, you know, so they might manifest in your relationships as you grow up, you know, over time, adulthood. There might be mental health effects where you're experiencing anxiety and depression. You might have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And a lot of times people, sometimes if they've never addressed a childhood sexual abuse, they don't make the correlation that some of what they're dealing with in adulthood had some ties back to the boundaries that were broken way back when. You know, so sometimes it takes like therapy to kind of like figure out where did this originate, you know, what's bringing this on. When you're around certain people, what are the triggers that are surfacing? Right. You know, so, you know, it can manifest in, like I said, mental health issues, dysfunctional relationships, PTSD.
Is it different between men and women? Because I know, especially when our men get sexually assaulted, apart from the stigma and everybody talking about the fact that, oh, you can't be raped as a man and all the rest of it, or we don't really pay attention to as much to when boys get molested as children because it's a quote-unquote man thing, which we really need to stop. We need to stop. We need to take into consideration that they're hurting too. Right. If a boy, just because his body responds, doesn't mean that that's something that he wants either. So how does it differ between how the response is, especially as adults, between men and women?
Well, you know, I don't know that there's necessarily has to be a distinct. I mean, I think it manifests differently in the sense of how, you know, men and women express themselves in general. Okay. But at the root of it, there's going to be anger, betrayal of trust, sense of, you know, boundary breaking and need to protect your boundaries. So, you know, what does that look like when you feel someone is encroaching upon your space? You know, how do you respond to those situations? Right. You know, and how do you verbalize that this is something that is bothering you? Are you even aware that it's bothering you? Right. Then you might just respond out of, you know, just because it's a pattern. You know, when something happens, you just respond, but you never give thought to the why. Why do I respond in this way?
Okay. Yeah. So. Okay. And so the reason why I had asked that question is because usually later on in life, in our agency, the Women's Coalition, we deal a lot with domestic violence. And most of our domestic violence victims, they're sexually abused in their relationships, and they're not quite sure why they don't see it as that, because they can get raped and they don't recognize that they've been raped. But they'll tell you, well, I didn't really want to have sex with him, but you know, he held me down on the bed and I just couldn't move, and so, you know, I just let it go, you know what I mean, and moved on. But now it's gotten to the point where I have a black and blue eye, or I have a mark on my body, and so my children are starting to react to it. Right. So that's the reason why I'm taking care of it now, or I'm doing something about it now. But the fact that they've been raped throughout the relationship, it's lost to them. And when you talk about, well, how long has this been happening? they will tell you, and like I'm one of the crisis counselors, they've told me, well, this was happening since I was a child, and it's just totally dismissed as if like, okay, well, that was normal behavior, you know, so it doesn't really make a difference at this point in time.
And this goes back to the desensitization,
right,
where there's a sense of learned helplessness because as a child, you trust the adults to help you protect your boundaries. But that trust is violated. You don't learn that. If someone doesn't teach you, like, okay, you need to enforce these boundaries, you don't really think to, I need this, you know.
Right.
So over time, you allow people to violate your boundaries because you don't have the voice to say, you know what, I need this space. This is not okay. You know, those are things that should be taught in childhood. And when adults violate that trust in childhood, you know, the child kind of misses that part of it and takes that into adulthood.
And
so it's sort of a learned helplessness.
Right.
And until, again, putting words to this is what happened to me, I was a victim in this situation. I actually had a voice, but I did not know I could speak up. I can now.
Right.
You know, those are things that have to actually be. It actually has to come to a person's consciousness. Like, this is what happened to me. I was a victim then. I don't have to be a victim now.
Okay.
Can this is Carolyn.
Hi, Carrie.
From the Women's Coalition. I two things. One thing that kind of come across my mind when we were talking about boundaries and kids, I've seen a lot sometimes telling children that it's okay to say, I don't want to hug somebody. That's something that we say to our children all the time, go give so-and-so a hug, go sit on so-and-so's lap. And so I wondered if that was a healthy way to kind of teach kids
Maybe
boundaries.
once upon a time that was truly innocent and you could do those things. Nowadays, no, you don't know everyone's intent, you know, and so you don't want to normalize certain behaviors, you know. No, you know, Uncle Johnny might not be a safe person to just give a hug to. And definitely, no, you don't have to sit on anybody's lap.
Right.
You know, that's okay.
And it's okay for them to say no.
Yeah,
that makes
no,
me
I'm not
uncomfortable.
comfortable with, exactly.
Right.
Right.
And the second thing, going back to the grooming part, this particular vignette talks, it's a very subtle sort of grooming, but I do think that there is grooming that happens that's a lot more overt. And we don't really touch on this with the series, but I know from stories in the office about actually people that will, I'm going to pay your rent.
Yes.
To the mom, I'm gonna go buy you
contracts for children.
I'm gonna go and get you groceries, and it's kind of this understanding that if I continue, maybe it starts up, I'm just a friend helping out this family, but then it becomes something that the family relies on financially, and unfortunately, then parents turn a blind eye to the abuse that is happening because of the financial incentive that is happening. So I don't know, I wondered if you could talk about that a little bit.
I thought about that concept, and one of the things I was kind of leery about is calling it grooming in that context, because there's a consent that their adults are.
Yes. Okay.
They've come into this contract on, you know, even if they're not talking about it.
Right.
It's an understanding that this is happening. Grooming is supposed to be more of a subtle, their caretaker usually may not be aware initially, but once their caretaker becomes aware this might be happening or this person is not safe, and they don't do anything about it, they are participating as someone who's victimizing this child as well.
Okay, good. I'm glad we make that, I think we have to make that distinction, because we see that a lot. Unfortunately, with some of the people that come to see us, and
they're a participant in the victimization, and you know, it's key that they know that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thanks.
Okay. And so with that as well, it comes down to a lot of the ways that past abuses play into it, and it gets a lot more in depth and in detail, and it's one of the reasons why women stay in domestic violence situations, because grooming doesn't happen in sexual assault. It happens in all types of relationships that are abusive, because grooming creates the control.
Right.
It pretty much creates the control in a way that you don't realize that you're being controlled.
And the control is more of an emotional control. So it's very subtle, you know, they're playing on your emotions and your niceness, and you know, it's passive aggressive behavior really. You know, it's really they're and it's aggressive in the sense that there's an intent
Right.
to do harm.
Right.
So,
Yeah, so that if you love me, you would. If you ever hear that, please question it. If you ever hear, if you love me, you would do so and so. You know, because then it's like you're doing it against your will. Because now it's a condition to what it is. And love and relationships really shouldn't be like that. Especially if it comes to little children. You know what I mean? If you love me, you would do this and I'll buy you candy. That's definitely a no-no. Things like that should not happen. So, the last question, because, you know, we're running out of time as usual. If you had one wish for the community...
Where's the time to go?
I don't know.
Where's the time to go?
I have no clue. If you had one wish for the community, when it came to a solution to this problem, what would it be?
one of the things I think is that we need to be on top of our families. We you know, as a community, we need to. We used to have this sense of it takes a village, and we've kind of shifted away from that because everyone don't want people in their business really. But at the same time, we have to be really aware of who's around who. You know, it's not okay if you see something happening that well, that's their thing. You know, they must know what they're doing. Say something, speak out. I really think it's key that we start caring about each other more, that if we see something, we say a young lady, you know, and she is doing, having her boyfriend over and, you know, you suspect grooming might be happening, say something, especially if you want the elders. It's okay to, you know, support a young, support the family structure, support healthy boundaries. You know, and sometimes it might mean that we do have to violate the boundary and mind somebody's business and say, look, you know, I kind of see something going on here and I'm not comfortable with that. You know, look into it. You know, so I just feel like if we could just support our community more in terms of being more on top of what's going on around us, whether it's in our home or, you know, our neighbors. You know, if you see something that is off, just say something. You know, it's better to be safe than sorry, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And that seems to be the ongoing thing. We need to get a t-shirt that's it. See something? Say something. Then do something. Honestly.
Silence is compliance.
Yes,
That's
and
right.
we don't want to comply. We want to speak and we want the secrets to be revealed. So thank you, Dr. Owen. You were amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And thank you for tuning in to Silence Speaks, Secrets Revealed and the after show, Let's Talk About It. This program is funded by a grant from RALIANCE, a collaborative initiative to end sexual violence in one generation made possible through a commitment from the National Football League. Its contents are solely the responsibility of the authors and do not necessarily represent the official views of the NFL, though it should. And our number at the coalition, if you need to talk to somebody, our number is 24/7-773-9272, or you can hit us up on Facebook, info@wcsdx.org if you need to use our email. But if you see something, say something, do something. Tell somebody, tell somebody, because you never know whose life you may be saving, whose life you may be changing, and don't wait for the problem to become your problem. If it's a problem, it's all our problem.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you so much.
I want to ask Dr. Owen really quickly, how does somebody get in touch with you if the listening public out there would like to reach out, or at any time? I don't know if it's clinic or
No,
where they can find you.
well, I have a private practice. My number is 340-692-2600.
Once again, that's 340-692-2600.
That's Dr. Jewel Owen.
And where you guys located?
We are in the process of moving to Dr. Batanka's old office in Island Medical Center.
Wonderful. Okay,
Centrally
good.
located.
Just putting that information out there. I want to thank the ladies of the Women's Coalition and Dr. Owen for coming through once again. Silence Speaks, Secrets Revealed.
Slick.
Anytime, man.
Slick,
Y'all blessing my show. Y'all make my show more fun.
We just have to. I just have to let you guys know. Slick has been amazing, and the mere fact that he's so involved in what we do helps us a lot, because it shows us that we're not the only ones doing this, that this really is a community effort, and the community collaborative is really what we need, because that's the way we get to build back the village. So thank you, Slick.
Appreciate it. Anytime.
Thank you.
Anytime.
All right.
Absolutely. Keep it locked. We got more jams on the way. We got music on the way.